हरिओम।
हरि ओम।
हरिओम।
हरिओम।
हरि ओम।
Okay. Okay, let's start. ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। Welcome back after a week-long sojourn, and we'll start with any questions. Are there any questions?
No questions, no class, no manan.
Everyone took a chutti. Okay, so then we'll start from where we left off. Let me just find that exact spot.
And through the intellect becomes conscious. After the seeker rises action, emotion, pure absolute medium is removed. The reflected pure consciousness is brought about by your unintelligent identification and attachment to your body. It is akin to the phenomena of reflection, all pervading sunlight.
Okay. So what we saw in the previous class was the composite personality of an individual. So every individual is the Atman, the self, enveloped by layers of matter. Now that you can see the screen in front of you, the chart in front of you, and this will summarize what we discussed. And it's important that you keep this this chart in mind, because as per Vedanta, it is the several composite layers of your personality. Of course, we can elaborate on each of these. We can elaborate on mind and intellect a lot, but it's important to make the distinction. Most people don't know the distinction between mind and intellect, man and buddhi. So beyond this physical body, this inner personality of yours is composed of man and buddhi. But before we come to that, essentially, you are the Atman, the self, enveloped by vasanas. There's a beautiful bhajan called Meli Chadar. Have you heard of the bhajan Meli Chadar?
Yeah, Mirabai.
Yes. Yes.
Vasanas are your Meli Chadar. अपने आत्मन में आपने वासनाओं की मैली चादर को ओढ़ करके रखा है। इस मैली चादर को हटाना है आपको, और जब तक आप नहीं हटाते हो आप उस चादर को पहन के रखते हो। So vasanas are the मैली चादर, and the vasanas manifest. Now the vasanas are, we say it is unmanifest. Unmanifest means it is not apparent, it is not visible. Vasanas, you can't pinpoint and say this is a vasana, that is a vasana. It's not like an object. Now, vasanas manifest, express themselves as the body, mind, intellect. Vasanas manifest as thoughts in the intellect, feelings in the mind, and organs and actions in the body. As your vasana, so your body, mind, and intellect. Now, this body of yours, it refers to the physical body, what we call the Annamaya Kosha. And this physical body itself has the organs of perception through which you perceive the world, and the organs of action through which you act into the world. It's something we're all familiar with. We are engaging in using all day. Through the senses we are perceiving, and through our organs of action and execution, we are executing actions in the world. We're performing actions in the world. But what is driving them? The body is simply a vehicle for perception and action. The body is merely an external performer. But what is making the performance happen? What is driving the performance? What is controlling the performance is something beyond the body. It's the mind and the intellect. Within you, you have two drivers, the mind and the intellect. And the play of the mind and intellect is what determines the performance of the body. The mind is your vessel of emotion, feelings, likes, dislikes, preferences, impulses. It's a vessel of feelings. And through the mind, you express emotions. Through the mind, you manifest feelings. And the buddhi in you is your tool for thinking, reasoning, judging, deciding, assessing, understanding, and more importantly, contemplating, meditating. So the intellect out here, he's divided into two aspects, the gross intellect and the subtle intellect, the sthula buddhi and the sukshma buddhi. Sthula means gross, sukshma means subtle. So the sthula buddhi is by definition that aspect of your buddhi, that part of your buddhi which deals in the world, which deals with the world, which deals with your relationships, which deals with your businesses, which deals with your day-to-day experiences, which deals with your scientific explorations, which deals with all sorts of matters relating to the world. And humans have made incredible progress as far as, if you have to analyze the world, it's what sets humans apart from all other creatures. Our capacity to harness the world through our gross intellect. We have harnessed the world. For millions and millions and millions of years, lizards have lived in this world. What have they achieved? But in a mere couple of 100,000 years, humans have completely transformed the world. And what sets them apart is nothing. I'm not praising humans or criticizing lizards. I'm analyzing what sets them apart. Buddhi. So the gross intellect with which you think, reason, judge, decide, understand, assess is called the sthula buddhi, the gross buddhi. Now, forget the sukshma buddhi. Most of us don't even exercise our gross buddhi. Most of us don't even cultivate it, let alone utilize it. See, buddhi has to be cultivated. And to cultivate the buddhi, to build the buddhi, you have to exercise it. You have to give independence. You have to allow for trial and error. We are too attached to being right. We are too attached to appearing right. We don't want to make mistakes. We don't want to allow people to think independently. We're too afraid to step into the unknown. Until and unless you step into the unknown, until and unless you allow someone to think independently, the buddhi will not be exercised. You're simply imitating people from the past. You're simply imitating those around you. So the field of your intellect, the field in which this intellect operates is the unknown. It's that tool with which you question, but we don't want to question. People take offense at questions. A student asks a teacher a question, the teacher gets offended. The expectation of education has become a mere replication. See, now people are saying, oh my God, AI is coming, Chat GPT is coming. Now, even more people will not think. Huh? Now I will ask Chat GPT to write my email for me. See, I've been noticing, the organization we work in, I've been noticing everybody's emails have gotten very eloquent. People who used to stutter to write one single sentence in English, now writing this morning only, I read an eloquent email from one of my colleagues to a client. Eloquent. Like, wow, Nobel Prize in Literature. Because AI is doing all the magic. See, AI is not the problem. Artificial intelligence is not the problem. Those who weren't making an effort earlier will continue to not make an effort today. Those who are making an effort to think independently will use AI accordingly to think independently and to help them in their work. The problem is not AI. Yes, it has become easier to not think. It's becoming easier and easier to not think and simply get by in the short term. That's what is changing. It's getting easier to imitate and replicate. Nowadays, people are saying, people in the recruitment world, they're saying, we can't figure out whether the candidate is using Chat GPT to answer all the questions or not. So, of course, in the short term, it's definitely a problem. It boils down to an attitude in life. It boils down to an attitude in life. Do I want to have? You may come to the same conclusion as others. You may do the same thing as others are doing. We're not asking you to be a rebel and do something altogether different. But have you come to your own conclusion as to why you are doing what you're doing? Have you come to your own conclusion about why you think what you think? Why have you come to your own conclusion about why you believe what you believe? That's the question. It may be the same as what others believe. You may be also chasing money like others are chasing money. No problem in that. Have you come to your own conclusion why you want the money? That's my question. Why do you want money? Because why you want this job? Everybody's looking for jobs, that's why. There's nothing wrong in wanting a certain kind of a job or wanting a certain amount of money. What is your reason? You give me your reason. Don't give it to me. Give yourself. Then you are exercising your buddhi. You're understanding the circumstances of your life. You're understanding your own desires. You're being honest with yourself, and you're coming to your own conclusion. You're exercising the buddhi. But most of us are simply imitating others. And life is creating certain impulses in us. We're simply following it without any idea of where we are going, what we want. So the buddhi, the stula buddhi, even in the world, helps you give direction to your life. Where do you want to get? What do you want to achieve? Without that stula buddhi, you can't get too far. Now, beyond the stula buddhi, beyond the gross intellect, there's another tool. It's the sukshma buddhi, which you possess, which I possess. The sukshma buddhi is the equipment with which we contemplate upon the unknown. We contemplate upon spiritual matters. We contemplate upon the reality. It's a gadget you possess, it's a gadget I possess, and it's layered upon layers and layers of maili chadar. If there's too much of layering on top of it, you can't hear the subtle intellect. Most of us are not able to hear the subtle intellect, or once in a while we're able to connect with it, because it is completely drowned by are worldly engagements, are entanglements. The extent to which you are enveloped by desires, to that extent, the subtle intellect is drowned in you, but it's there. Its voice is simply not accessible to you. It's drowned deep inside. The more you free yourself from the several layers of desires, that voice becomes more and more stronger. It becomes more and more louder. But it's there in all of us. In the most gross of people, in the most mundane of people, the subtle intellect is there. In the saint, the subtle intellect is there. It's just about how loud that voice is, how accessible that voice is. And that subtle intellect is your tool with which you contemplate. The louder the voice, the more accessible the tool, the better you are at maintaining the thought. Better you are at maintaining the thought. Many people will all complain. While I'm in this class, I'm able to think about all of this, but after the class, why? Because it's drowned. It gets drowned. Our job out here is to help you navigate through the layers of desires so that you can keep this voice alive through the course of the day. It doesn't have to be drowned. So, body, mind, intellect. Now, that's why he concluded out here through the body you are the perceiver and the actor, through the mind you are the feeler, and through the intellect you are the thinker and the contemplator. And so you essentially you have four composite personalities, as it were. You have the physical personality, you have the emotional personality, intellectual and spiritual. Enabling, enlivening the substratum of all of these is the self, the Atman. It is unconditioned by all of these. It has nothing to do with any of these. All of these personalities are your various material equipments playing around, expressing themselves. The Atman is the same. The Atman is untainted, unconditioned. Yes, is there a question?
Is it subtle is Antashkaran or what?
Yes, you can think of subtle body as the Antakaran. हम जब Antakaran word use करते हैं, के भीतर
Antaratma, yeah.
I wouldn't use the word Atma out there. It's the so Antakaran refers to subtle body, it refers to your mind and intellect. Yeah, Rashi.
We were talking right now about the subtle intellect and the gross intellect. So, what's the relationship between the development of the gross intellect and whether and the subtle intellect? Like, do we need to have a gross intellect well developed to be able to access and develop our subtle intellect, or can we have an underdeveloped gross intellect and still have a very well developed and sharpened subtle intellect?
Good question. Good question. It's not a hard and fast rule. Okay. You have incredible people who appear very simple in terms of worldly achievement or worldly engagement, but they are highly spiritually attuned. Highly spiritually attuned. They may not be very intelligent in worldly matters. They may not know how to do compound interest, where to invest, what kind of assets to manage, but they're completely spiritually aligned. So there's no hard and fast rule that you have to have the gross intellect strong to have a strong subtle intellect. They're unrelated in that sense. So short answer to your question is no. But what is it that is impeding the subtle intellect? What is drowning the voice of the subtle intellect? I'm asking a question. What is it that's drowning the voice of the subtle intellect?
Entanglement in the world.
Your worldly entanglements, your desires, right? And the extent to which you're entangled in the world, it's like a web, a spider's web. You're stuck. So what helps you disentangle yourself? What helps you disentangle yourself is your gross intellect. What helps you streamline your life is your gross intellect. What helps you simplify? What helps you become? What enables you to manage? Now, when that is simplified, it's giving an opportunity for the subtle intellect to surface. That's about it. So while there's no direct relationship of, you have to have a strong gross intellect to have a strong. Some people are just, because of their sadhana, because of their past, because of the work they've put in on the spiritual journey, just born very free. They're not born very entangled. They don't entangle themselves in worldly affairs that much. We'll see such specimens. But the gross intellect helps streamline, simplify, so that your subtle intellect can surface. Right? Until and unless you manage the affairs of the world, you'll never come to the question of spirituality. Until and unless you're drowned in problems of business and relationships, 9 out of 10 people are drowned in that. You won't come to this question. So first, to help you manage that, build your stula buddhi, build your gross intellect, so that you can simplify. Once you've simplified your business, you don't have to work more than 3-4 hours a day. When you're dealing with all the problems, you have to stay all night, day in, day out. Once you've streamlined it, once you've got executives to run it, once you've created the structure, once you've managed it, hopefully you don't have to work day in, day out. You may want to, that's a different thing. You don't need to. So it gives opportunity for your subtle intellect to surface once you've managed all of that stuff. So does that make sense, the relationship?
Yeah, because you had said that, the gross intellect helps us to, come to a reason for why we are doing whatever we are doing in this world. So, I mean, once we start thinking on that, it's only then can we, okay, this is why I'm doing any material action. So, what is the next action that I need to do?
Correct. So it's not automatic that thinking along these lines will make you stumble upon, say, the spiritual path. Why a lot of people will question why they're doing what they're doing and find no spiritual reason for it. In that sense, they might come up with very well refined, say, so-called practical reasons. They might do their cost benefit analysis. So it's not that automatically through this thinking of why you're doing what you're doing, you come to a spiritual conclusion. It all depends on the extent to which that voice of the subtle intellect is available to you. When you're asking that question, is that Marina's compass from within pointing you in the spiritual direction or not? Is that voice of the subtle intellect accessible to you or not? May not be. If it is, then chances are you might think along those lines. See, which is why a lot of people say come to the spiritual path after maybe a big incident in their life, because all through they've been living with a certain assumption of the world and fully convinced that this is how the world works and this is what they want, and if they get that, they'll be happy. And when life throws them a shock, what happens? All those fantasies, at least temporarily, are removed. So, in the absence of that, when a strong experience removes delusion temporarily, that subtle intellect suddenly becomes available. So it's all about availability of the subtle intellect. at different times of the day, the subtle intellect is available and not available. Right now, early hours of the morning, when there are less distractions, there are less, when sattva, which is why we say early hours of the morning, sattva manifests. What is sattva? Sattva is that state of clarity. Sattva is that state of equanimity when worldly entanglements are abated to some extent. So it's the best time for the subtle intellect to surface. In the middle of the day, you're dealing with 10 people and 10 problems. If I come and ask you, what's your spiritual question? Huh? Most of us will be like, oh, not aligned. So it gets drowned. Okay.
Thank you.
एक्चुअली क्या है कि वो जब आदमी जिंदगी में ऊब जाता है, जिंदगी में बहुत दौड़ भाग करके कमा के ये करके वो करके, then only he looks for subtle to spirituality और अंतस्करण की आवाज फिर सुनता है, मेरा ख्याल है.
I wish that was the rule. अगर वो rule होता, then everybody above 60 would be very spiritual. हाँ.
जनरली हो तो जाते ही है ना, और
Sir,
थोड़ा बहुत ऊब तो हो जाती है कि भाई, कि आदमी ऊब जाता है कि भाई क्या है ये सब कुछ, क्या रखा है इसमें, क्या रखा है उसमें, क्या रखा है, कमा लिया, बहुत कुछ हो गया, ये अचीव कर लिया,
बस
वो
आप चिंता सकता है. सॉरी टू, मैं नहीं कह रहा हूँ, ये आदि शंकराचार्य कह रहे हैं. आदि शंकराचार्य कह रहे हैं कि वृद्ध स्थिति में, जब ओल्ड एज में 9 out of 10 people come to spirituality not out of love for spirituality but out of fear of the unknown. शायद यहाँ कोई आंसर मिल जाए, यहाँ कोई सोल्यूशन मिल जाए. So just because we are attending these classes doesn't mean we are spiritually attuned. It all matters on the intention. It all matters on our sense of purpose. Yes, after a point of time, you grow out of options. हाँ, 60 साल आपने बिता लिया, आपने देखा कि ये मैंने ट्राई किया, वो मैंने ट्राई किया, कम वक्त खुशी नहीं मिली. मतलब ठीक है, खुशी मिली बट आनंद नहीं मिला. So, but if that was the case, of course, experience is important, but it's not an automatic qualifier to make you spiritual. If it was automatic, then we wouldn't have had the problem of punarapi janam, punarapi maranam. तब तो ऑटोमेटिकली 60 के बाद इसी जन्म में सब स्पिरिचुअल बन जाते हैं. And we would be
नहीं, रैट रेस तो चलती रहती है ना, रैट रेस तो है ही है.
आदि शंकराचार्य कहते हैं ना भज गोविंदम में, that you grow old, your teeth fall off, your hair vanishes, but the band of desires leave not. जो इच्छा है, ये जो संगत है, ये जो मोह है, वो जाती नहीं. Otherwise there would be no need for this classroom.
Yes, sir.
वैराग्य भी
बहुत अच्छा सब्जेक्ट
connect
है,
है,
बहुत अच्छा
शांत
सब्जेक्ट.
है वैराग्य.
हाँ जी.
इट्स अ वेरी गुड सब्जेक्ट टू dwell ऑन. एक्चुअली यही हमारे को सीखना है कि भाई हम अपनी सटल बुद्धि अंतस्करण को कैसे उसका उपयोग करें, उसको यूज करें, उसको स्पिरिचुअलिटी की तरफ लेके जाए. अपनी इतनी एनर्जी है हमारे अंदर, हम लाइफ के एक मोड़ पर आके देखते हैं कि पूरा वेस्ट कर दिया हमने, सब सत्यानाश कर दिया. अब कुछ और है क्या? जब वो कुछ और है का जब दिल में उमंग आती है, वो भी एक डिजायर ही है, तो आती है तो फिर आदमी सोचता है कि नहीं, कुछ और भी है.
So हम ऐसा नहीं चाहेंगे कि आपको लगे कि जिंदगी का आपने सत्यानाश कर दिया. That's not the idea. देर ही सही, when you start, it's a good time to start.
Yeah.
Life is very forgiving. And ऐसा नहीं कि your experiences have been have tantamounted to nothing. All the experiences you carry, all the life experiences that you brought with you are only going to help you. right? So it's not about every experience is a spiritual experience. You just don't realize it. Every experience is a spiritual experience. So the Atman, the pure consciousness functioning through the body becomes the perceiver and actor, functioning through the mind becomes the feeler, and functioning through the intellect becomes the thinker and contemplator. The individuality is no more. He merges with the absolute consciousness, is akin to phenomenon of reflected sunlight. Okay, so we start with this previous paragraph. The Atman, the pure consciousness,
emotion and thought, and the action by the equipments. When a spiritual seeker rises, consciousness functioning thus becomes the limited, restricted human being. The Atman, the pure consciousness functioning thus through the body, becomes conscious of perception and action. Through the mind becomes conscious of emotion. And through the intellect becomes conscious of thought. The pure consciousness becomes conditioned by the equipments. When a spiritual seeker rises above his body, mind, and intellect and their objects of consciousness, transcends the limitation of perception and action, emotion and thought, the conditioning ceases. The individuality is no more. He merges with the pure absolute consciousness. It is akin to the phenomena of reflection and sunlight. When the reflecting medium is removed, the reflected image disappears. What remains is the all-pervading sunlight.
so just a very beautiful and important concept I'd like you to dwell upon. So currently, you are the Atman enveloped by the material equipments. The Atman, the pure consciousness, once enveloped by the material equipments, becomes conditioned consciousness. These are all terms which we are using in this context. You are conditioned consciousness. What is the meaning of conditioned consciousness? You are conscious of your perception of action through the body. You are conscious of emotion through your mind. You're conscious of thinking, thought through the intellect. Another word for consciousness is awareness, right? So you are aware of. If I ask you, are you aware? Suppose I ask you, and assuming you are awake right now, I am asking you, are you aware? What will you say? Yes, I am aware. But what does that mean? I am aware of the sound I am hearing right now, aware of perception. Whenever you say aware, it is actually a conditioned awareness of a sound or a sight. It's aware of a feeling. Are you aware? Are you conscious of what you're feeling within you? Yes, I am feeling happy. I'm feeling sad. So you're conscious of happiness or sadness within you. Yes, I am conscious of a particular thought. When you're studying mathematics or when you're studying physics or chemistry, I'm conscious of the theory of whatever XYZ. So all the consciousness that you possess currently, or which you can sort of grasp currently, is a conditioned consciousness. You're conscious of either perception or action at the level of the body, feeling at the level of the mind, or thought at the level of the intellect. It's a conditioned consciousness. It's like pure consciousness is like sunlight. Your material equipments are like a reflecting medium, and your conditioned consciousness is like a image, the reflected image. So he says, when the individuality is no more, when the material layers are eliminated, when the vasanas are eliminated, you merge with the pure consciousness. Just as when the reflecting medium is removed, when the mirror is removed, what happens to the image? अगर आप मिरर को ढक दो, there'll be no image. remain is just pure consciousness. So to reach the pure, currently you are conditioned, your consciousness is conditioned. How do you reach the pure consciousness? Remove the reflecting medium. What is the reflecting medium? Your body, your mind, your intellect. What are you doing in meditation? That's exactly what you're doing in meditation. First and foremost, you're removing the body, you're going within. In the ultimate state of meditation, the culmination of the spiritual journey, first and foremost, you're removing the body. Those who have seen saints meditate, they watch them sit for hours and hours and hours and hours in deep meditation. You and me will think, how is it possible? Because there's no consciousness of the body. They go beyond the body. If you listen to Sadhguru will talk about his experience of meditation. It's available on the internet. Even Swamiji used to talk about it. He used to mention that when he used to go into meditation, he closed his eyes, suddenly he'll open his eyes, 9 hours have passed. 9 hours have passed. No consciousness of the body. You and I will sit half an hour. We'll start rubbing our back. We start twisting. Why? Full consciousness of the body, because we're not in meditation. So in meditation, that's precisely what you're doing. First of all, you're removing the body. Then in the chant, what is actually happening? In the chant and silence, you're trying to, first of all, streamline the mind, simplify the mind into a single thought, and then end it in silence. In silence, you're eliminating the mind. No thought, no chant. And in the silence, there's nothing for the intellect to do. So far, as long as you were chanting, the intellect was doing the work of keeping the mind in check. It was keeping the thought on that single chant. Sound silence. It was maintaining that flow. And when it's silence, the mind disappears. The intellect has nothing else to do. It vanishes. There's no body, there's no mind, there's no intellect. You've removed the reflecting medium. What will remain is pure consciousness. What you will attain is pure consciousness. So this is the theory of meditation. Practically, hopefully you and I will try it someday. This is all a preparation for it. So what is that preparation? How do we get there? This conditioning that we have fallen into, it has come about due to unintelligent identification. It has come due to, without thinking, we've fallen into unintelligent attachment to our material equipments, to our body, mind, and intellect. We have to slowly uncondition ourselves. This is what we'll talk about going forward.
The conditioning of the pure consciousness is brought about by your unintelligent identification and attachment to your body, mind, and intellect. Your focus of attention has long remained in the realms of these equipments. Consequently, you are held a hostage of your perception and action, emotion and thought. You can free yourself from this bondage and regain your supreme self through the 3 spiritual disciplines. Karma Yoga, path of action for the body. Bhakti Yoga, path of devotion for the mind. Jnana Yoga, path of knowledge for the intellect. These spiritual practices are programmed to reach you to the goal of self-realization. The state of pure consciousness, the abode of absolute peace and bliss. The disciplines enable you to control and direct your equipments to tread the spiritual path. Use your intellect to guide the mind, senses, and body to the ultimate destination. If the intellect is not alert, the mind goes out of control. The senses run amok and the body perishes. This idea is portrayed in the picture of the chariot and horses in the epic Mahabharata, with Krishna as the charioteer and Arjuna seated behind. When the charioteer holds the reins firmly, the horses are under control. The chariot heads to its destination. If the charioteer is not alert, the reins slacken. The horses go out of control. The passenger fails to reach his destination. In the metaphor, the charioteer represents the intellect, the reins, the mind, the horses, the senses, the passenger, the individual. When the intellect maintains a perfect control over the mind and senses, the individual reaches the ultimate goal.
So he's setting the tone for the next couple of chapters. Huh? He's preparing us for what is to come. This chapter we're discussing the conditioning, and the rest of the chapters we're going to discuss the path to unconditioning ourselves. And that process is going to follow the process of the 4 yogas: karma, bhakti, jnana, and hatha. We talk about hatha when we come to it. So these spiritual practices are programmed to help you uncondition yourself slowly, gradually, step by step, and ultimately reach that state of unconditioned goal of self-realization. Now he's going to talk about another aspect, another way of looking at the several sort of composite layers of the personality. So keep this in mind, what we've discussed so far. This is a slight elaboration of it. It's a different way to look at it. It's not all that different. It only gives us more food for thought, right? We've discussed body, mind, intellect. Now I'll elaborate on the body, mind, intellect a little more. Right now it was 3 layers. Now he's breaking up the 3 layers further into 5 layers. It's called the Panchakosha. So the 3 layers we talked about, he's going to talk about 5 layers now.
Personality layers. The human being is composed of 5 material layers with the self Atman at the core. The mystic symbol Om is the Atman at the center of your personality. 5 layers of matter encircle the Atman. They are known as Panchakoshas. The outermost circle of matter is the food sheath, Annamaya Kosha. Within it is the vital air sheath, Pranamaya Kosha. Next, the mental sheath, Manomaya Kosha, and intellectual sheath, Vijnanamaya Kosha. The innermost is the bliss sheath, Anandamaya Kosha.
So please learn this by heart. You'll get tested on it. I'm joking. But it's good to know. It's important to know. The Annamaya Kosha, the Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya Kosha. You'll be thinking, oh my God, right now you taught body, mind, intellect. Now you're talking Kosha. What is all this? You go to the Upanishad, he'll talk about the 16 layers of the mind. Within the Manomaya Kosha, there are 16 ways in which you can further dissect it. So it's not altogether different. It's not a different topic altogether. It's a slight elaboration. Now, you don't have to know all the theory. What's important is that you understand the concept. The concept earlier was Atman enveloped by body, mind, intellect. The concept here is also Atman enveloped by the 5 layers, the 5 sheets, as it were. Same idea. Atman is being enveloped by them. So,
food sheath. The food sheath is the physical body constituted of the 5 organs of perception and 5 organs of action. Term so since it is caused by food consumed, maintained by food, and finally ends up as food for other creatures.
See, that's the outermost layer is the food sheath, the Annamaya Kosha. It's beautiful to think of it this way. Huh? This body you hold so dear, huh? The skin on which you apply all the creams, spend all half your salary on these creams and lotions and moisturizers. Hmm? Someone I know went to a dermatologist the other day. They handed them a. See, I can't imagine if you're spending 4 figures on creams and all. Okay, it's a little bit of a stretch. The person was handed a 5-figure bill for 5 creams, and not only as a low 5-figure, a very high 5-figure, almost 6-figure. I'm not saying you should or should not. All I'm saying is it's the food sheath. It's maintained by food and eventually will end up as food for all other creatures. See, when you think of the body this way, it gives you a certain level of detachment. We talk about developing Sakshi Bhav, we talk about developing that sense of objectivity. When you think of your layers of your personality in this manner, it automatically gives you objectivity to the body. What is this body? This body is something that is created, caused by the food consumed. It is maintained by the food consumed, and eventually will end up as food for other creatures. It's as simple as that. If you don't consume healthy food, it will show up in the body immediately. Your skin will turn pale, your hair will gray. Why? Because you don't have enough vitamin D or vitamin E or whatever vitamins you don't have. So it immediately will manifest. This body, physical body, is created and maintained by the food, and eventually, once you pass, this body, Deha Anta, the end of this body, what we call death, eventually this body will become food for other creatures. Compost. Any of you worked with compost? I have a very deep relationship with compost. My first job in college, I was with compost. I used to be a compost manager. Means I used to pick up all the scrap vegetables and food from the dining halls. I used to take it to our college farm and drop it into the pile of compost. Incredible. I think one of the most valuable lessons I've learned in life. Help me appreciate this concept further. When you see, the peel of the banana or the peel of the orange turn into beautiful, rich soil within a matter of 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And that same smelly trash in the bin will turn into beautiful smelling compost. And all through an incredible process, there's hundreds of creatures involved, there's steam, there's heat, incredible process. The cycle of life. So when I went to the ashram, so when I told Swamiji, this is what I used to do, he said, you should do it here also. So they made us do composting in the ashram. And my name was Kachrawala. I was Kachrawala. It's incredible. Your body is nothing but banana peel. You throw it in the trash, it will become food for creatures. It will transform into black gold. They call it black gold. Because that compost is almost black in color. It's dark brown, and it's extremely nutritious for the next plants that will grow. Finally ends up. So when you think of the outermost layer of your body in that manner, it'll give you objectivity. What is this body? Let me take care of it, eating good healthy food while I am alive. Eventually it'll turn into food for other creatures.
vital air sheath. This sheath is made up of 5 physiological functions known as pranas. It is named vital air since it is related to the air you breathe. The pranas are the following 5 faculties. Prana, perception, the 5 senses of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching. Apana, excretion, that which throws out, discharges feces, urine, sperm, sputum, perspiration, etc. Samana, digestion, digests food consumed. Vyana, circulation, distributes digested food to different parts of the body. Udana, thought absorption, takes in fresh knowledge.
This is a very scientific um, exposition of the physiological functions. Now, if you've been part of any puja, you'll hear the Panditji say, Pranaya Swaha, Panaya Swaha, Samanaya Swaha, Vyana Swaha, Udana Swaha. You have no idea what he's saying. He's talking about the vital air sheaths. And we, in our tradition, we even associate these with particular gods and we worship them because they are incredible physiological functions which help you maintain this life. Now, what are they? In essence, they are within your personality, within your body, or within this individual unit. They are a sheath, they are a layer which enable you to live. So your pranas are essentially the physiological functions which help your body to function, which help your body to manage and deal with the process of life. So beyond the physical body, or rather within the gross physical body, there's a subtler layer, within the Annamaya Kosha and before the Manomaya Kosha. So this is something we skipped altogether in our first discussion, in our first elaboration of the personality layers, but something we touch upon in this concept. And very interesting. Essentially, the vital air sheath is the glue between the food sheath and the emotional layer, the Manomaya Kosha, the mental sheath. The glue between the food sheath and the mental sheath is the vital air sheath. And it is divided into 5 faculties, broadly. 5 faculties: Prana, Apana, Samana, Vyana, and Udana. Prana and Apana, again, if you've heard of this, especially in pranayam, you may think prana is inhalation and apana is exhalation. But it's not just inhalation and exhalation. Prana broadly means taking in not only breath, but any kind of perception. So prana is perception, taking in. And apana is excretion, taking out, not only breath, but anything. So broadly, that process of perception with which you are able to take in, whether it is food for the tongue, whether it is sight for the eyes, whether it is sound for the ears, whether it is smell for the nose or air for the nose, whether it is touch for the skin. So that process is enabled by pranas. In fact, each of your senses are extremely comprehensive units. Your ears have an incredible physiology to them, the process by which you actually hear. Your nose has an incredible physiology to it. Every winter, come all the pollution in Delhi, your nose protects you. It can only protect you that much. So many fine filters it has, millions and millions of filters it has. Your eyes have an incredible physiology to them. The various nerve endings in your eyes and all the optical nerves, incredible. We just take it for granted. We have eyes to see, keep seeing. We have ears to hear, keep hearing. We don't think about this. What is enabling me? So, what is this prana that is enabling this function? Similarly, excretion, something we don't give importance. But as important as is prana, so important, equally important is apana, excretion. Without excretion, sorry to use the term, you'll be constipated. Huh? For the lack of a. Imagine with breath itself, I'm saying you inhale, but you're not allowed to exhale. You'll swell up. Inhale and don't exhale. And after 30 seconds, I'll take a picture of you. We'll frame that photo. If you're not allowed excretion, it'll be terrible. To remove the toxins, to remove the waste, it's as important a function. So, as important is prana, so is apana. Now, from what is taking in and what is taking out, some amount is absorbed. What is allowing for this digestion to happen? Because you're taking in a complicated input. Imagine the food you're eating. It's a complex, whether you want to call it a complex carb and all sorts of other nutrients. It has to be broken down. So what's enabling this digestion is the power of samana. And once the food is digested, it has to be distributed to various parts of the body. Physiologically, it's called dhyana. So whether you want to call it the circulatory system, whether you want to call it the bloodstream, essentially, what plays an important part in distributing all the nutrients, which is absorbed as a part of digestion. And it culminates in udana. The subtlest aspect of the prana is thought absorption. That capacity to take in fresh ideas, fresh knowledge. Essentially, prana, apana, samana, vyana maintain your physical form to enable udana, your thought absorption, your capacity to function on a subtler level. Now, the thing with all these pranas is that they begin and they develop, but with age, they slowly deteriorate. We're well familiar with prana, apana, samana, and vyana deteriorating with time. The amount of chola bhatura you could eat when you're 18 years old, 17 years old, you can't eat when you're 35. See, we're from Calcutta, so in Calcutta used to have puchka competition. The one thing Calcutta has better than the rest of the country is the puchka. Golgappas and pani puris and all are nothing in comparison to puchka. So when you come to Calcutta, you have to do a puchka competition. So back in the day, maybe you could manage 25, 30. Now even 5 is a struggle. Why? Because the pranas are deteriorating. Slowly they're deteriorating, including udana. Udana also deteriorates with time. Your capacity to take in fresh knowledge, your capacity to relate to newer concepts and ideas, your capacity to absorb, which is why a generation gap is created. What is the reason for the generation gap? Because as one generation grows older, the capacity to look at things afresh and take in new ideas diminishes with time. They become set in their ways. The reason for people becoming set in their ways is udana lowers. See, I'll be very honest with you. I've already hit 30. Immediately my udana, I can notice I'm not interested in these newer concepts. I almost find it a little too new. It's a separate thing that you have to if you want to remain relatable, you have to maintain your udana. So maintaining your udana, just like any other prana that you have to maintain to remain healthy, you have to maintain the udana. So you have to challenge yourself. But the thing with pranas is that they deteriorate with time. But the role of the pranas is to enable you to function. So they're physiological functions which help you manage and function through the course of life. So beyond the vital air sheath, beyond the food and vital air sheath, is the mental sheath, the intellectual sheath, and ultimately the bliss sheath. We'll talk about these in the coming class. I think we're out of time right now, but I'm happy to take up any quick questions if there are before we conclude. Are there any questions?
Sir, you have used a very good word of साक्षी भाव. अगर हमको इन सब चीजों के ऊपर साक्षी भाव होना शुरू हो जाए तो हमारी स्पिरिचुअल ग्रोथ होनी शुरू हो जाएगी. मेरा ये विचार है. आपने साक्षी भाव का वर्ड यूज किया, which I wanted to use little earlier. ये साक्षी भाव जो इतनी आपने चीजें बताई हैं, ये सुनी हुई हैं खाली. अगर हम इसके ऊपर ध्यान करें, विचार करें, तो हमारे को एक we'll inculcate a process of analyzing and then understanding. Then the seeds one after the other, it will start, वो दरवाजे खुलने शुरू हो जाएंगे, जहां तक मेरा ख्याल है.
And what helps you with this Sakshi Bhav is thinking of your personality in this manner. When you break it up into 5 sheets and you understand the Annamaya Kosha is just a food sheet, the name itself will help you develop Sakshi Bhav.
बहुत अच्छी.
आप नाम के बारे में सोचो. आपके शरीर को नाम दिया गया है अन्नमय कोश, मतलब खाने से बनता है और दूसरे के लिए खाना बनता है. Simple. So it helps you develop that Sakshi Bhav. Correct, indeed. Any further questions?
बहुत आभारी हूँ स्वामी जी के लिए कि उन्होंने इतनी अच्छी तरह इसको एक्सप्लेन किया है. हम सुनते आए थे लेकिन अभी मन में उतरा नहीं था. अभी बहुत ही हमारा ग्रेटिट्यूड है टुवर्ड्स हिम.
Wonderful. Yes, indeed. The galaxy of saints and sages. इसलिए हम गुरु पूर्णिमा मनाते हैं. साल में तो एक ही बार मनाते हैं, बट हर सुबह हमें गुरु पूर्णिमा मनानी चाहिए. बिकॉज उनके द्वारा हमें ये ज्ञान मिला है. So you have to remain incredibly grateful. Immeasurable.
जो अंधकार को मिटा दे वही गुरु है.
Indeed.
आप भी हमारे गुरु हैं.
Indeed. So, in fact, I believe some of you came to the event last night also. I saw some of you there. We had a great event at Gurgaon. Sorry, I mentioned it so late because I myself was traveling. But we had an event in Gurgaon where Shivendra Nagarji, Acharya Shivendra Nagarji spoke. So I think if there's a recording available, I'll share the link online. But after a long time, we also had the opportunity to sing bhajans. So almost for half an hour, 45 minutes, we were singing bhajans. And it was a great event. That class was also very very enlightening and inspiring in that sense. So if I have a recording of the event yesterday, I'll share a link. Satsangs, occasions like that, because I'll share a recording. So with the hope that we keep organizing events and occasions and satsangs like this to help each other on the path, to help us attune further on our journey. So with that spirit, we'll conclude today and we'll reconvene again on Wednesday to take our discussion ahead on the Panchakoshas, on the mental sheath, the intellectual sheath, and the bliss sheath. So thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you again in 2 days.
Thank you. Thank you.